All right. So again, thank you so much for joining us today. We've got a really packed session, and we're going to try to keep it as short as possible. And let me just kind of give you the lay of the land for today. We're going to have a couple of speakers today, and we're going to start with Chris Fibby, who's really going to be talking about some of the challenges that professional services companies have as they grow, and then talking about some of the solutions to those challenges. And Chris Fibby, who is one of the principals of ITK Solutions Group, has a really unique perspective, and here's why. Chris has seen these growing pains firsthand in his own IT consulting firm, and he's also had the benefit of having the perspective of helping other companies deal with some of these challenges, right? So deal with the challenges that that professional services companies are running into these days. It's kind of the growth dilemma. It's that it's the growing pains challenge that that many companies are running into. And we're also going to have another guest here today, and Boss is going to be sharing what some of those solutions look like, and how companies that are dealing with these growing pains, how they deal with it specifically in terms of professional services automation. So that's really the quick snapshot, the big picture of today. I'm going to hand this off to Chris, and again, we'll have Chris talking, and then we'll give you a little glimpse into how some of these challenges are being addressed. And then what I want to do is open it up to you folks to get your own questions answered. So you'll have that opportunity at the end. You can certainly pass questions before we get to the end, but that's what today's going to look like. So Chris, the floor is all yours.
Thanks, Brian. Certainly appreciate it, and appreciate everybody taking a little time to jump on the webinar today. Certainly value your time, and really looking at this more as passing along some insights and a bit of an education seminar, if you will. I'm just going to set the stage for Boss, so he can come up and, as Brian said, illustrate some of the solutions that we've actually implemented ourselves. But before we do that, I thought I would just go back and talk a little bit about this common traits that all of us have, and that's a we here, guys. This is we're all professional services firms or professional services organizations that are on the call. So before we start, I'm going to pull up a quote from it's actually a report out of Service Performance Insights. They put together a report every year on our sector, and I thought it was very appropriate for our session today. So let me pull it up here. So it goes like this: despite legions of time-saving devices, technology, no one has yet found a way to make an hour longer than 60 minutes, nor have they discovered how to make a day last more than 24 hours. Pretty simple. The secret here, guys, is certainly to work smarter and not harder. So what does that mean for all of us in this space? In a nutshell, it means that we've got to reduce our administrative tasks, plain and simple. The time it takes, and then we spend entering time and business expenses, or writing or continually updating our project status reports. How about the endless resource scheduling meetings, not knowing where people are, when they're going to roll off projects, et cetera, et cetera. No more entering and re-entering, so much information into our finance and accounting systems, whether it's our team members booking information onto an Excel timesheet, which then our office staff have to turn around and enter it into the system. So, in the olden days, we used to look at things as we're going to optimize our business processes for the short-term effect. The truth is, the way we are right now is we can't look at it that way anymore. They're all prerequisites for long-term business success. So as we're looking at this and considering how we can better our operational processes, no, it's not for 12 months from now. It's actually much longer than that. So with that, we're going to jump in and talk about some common traits. So more and more ProServ companies employ their workers. They work outside of the company offices, right? That doesn't mean that we're not working remotely. We don't have to be at client sites, but much of that time is spent from our homes or WeWork or what have you, down the street from your house. Nonetheless, they're outside of our company offices. And what does that mean? That means it's a bit more difficult to track where they are from a work standpoint. Who's available? Who's not available? When will they be? Yeah, we get status reports here and there, but we want to understand and have a better appreciation on a more timely basis. Not only that, which resources have which skill sets that we need? And where are those skill sets? How can we pull them up? All of these are items and things that we have to be worrying about. You roll that into your timesheet to cash cycle. How long is that? Seems simple, but it's not, especially in today's world when we have so many independents and 1099s out there where we have ladders. So you have a subcontractor that feeds up to a larger consulting firm, and then we pull that consulting firm onto our project. So there's ladders in there. It's time to billing, frankly. So how can we expedite that? How do we make that a shorter cycle? All very important. Not only that, not just to mention that what I said a little bit earlier from the double entry. The consultant fills out a timesheet, which is in Excel. That timesheet gets uploaded. Maybe it gets uploaded to QuickBooks. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it gets uploaded someplace else, or it's even hand keyed in. So these are all items that we have to take into consideration when we're trying to optimize our business processes. What most of us are doing in small businesses is we're using QuickBooks and spreadsheets, not only to manage capacity planning, but for all the other things, right? And when that happens, what do we have to do? We've got to pump data out of our GL or perhaps our timekeeping system. We pull it into Excel. We have to build pivot tables. We flip the data around. Yeah, we can do it. We are doing it, or some of us are doing it, or we were doing it not too long ago. But we've got to get out of that. We have to get out of that. We can survive, but it's certainly the hard way. So those of you that are on the call today, if you're having problems with difficulty with budgeting, managing cash flow, projecting revenue, maybe you're just having a tough time optimizing resources and utilization rates, especially if you've got candidates that run 2 or 3 projects at a time, and you need to understand where they are and what bill rates they're at across the board. Our funnel to cash, right? And just overall difficulty with our wins, right? The business wins. The other thing that's not up here that I'll bring to light, and this is true to heart, right, is when we go out and we start building our proposals, we build our proposals based upon our gut feel, but that gut feel's over a 10-year period, right, guys? But we're still doing it from our previous proposals as opposed to actual time we might have recorded on our previous 3 projects. So by having an integrated system or a PSA that's actually built properly, you'll be able to pull that data down and you create your proposals much quicker. How do I know all this stuff? I feel pretty confident talking about it because I've been in the space probably longer than I want to admit, 25 years. For 4 years, I was at a software company, rose to the ranks, became a consulting manager, so I was handling capacity planning and whatnot for an office. And then I broke off and I was an entrepreneur. I've been an entrepreneur for 21 years. Over that time period, I've had the opportunity to work 3 startups. Those 3 startups included acquisitions on the buy side and the sell side, and then I've also sold in the private equity space. Those last few points there, the acquisitions, the buy side, sell side, and the equity space, although it may not appear right now because it's not on your horizons or you're not thinking about it, but having a PSA system that's accurate and you can go back to makes an enormous difference if you're talking to somebody on either side of the fence there. So very, very important from that perspective. And Brian mentioned earlier in the introduction that we're kind of living this or eating our own cooking, if you will. ITK Solutions Group. That's where I'm at right now. We have a great team here. We're a boutique management consulting firm in the systems integration space. And like many of you, over the last 7 to 8 years, growth has been nice. From 14 to 17, we grew at over 25%, and we had hyper growth last year at over 60%. So what we're talking about here is the capabilities to be able to manage your team and build those proposals and assign the right resources at the right time. We're, like many of you, we're composed of W-2s, 1099s. That's not too different in our space. We're based here in Boston, and we've got ops in Atlanta and Philadelphia. And our business is broken down in two spaces, in two verticals. And this is really, the rubber's going to hit the road pretty quickly here when I start introducing Unit 4 and Microsoft. So in the Unit 4 space, or our partnership with Unit 4, we go after the professional services space, not-for-profit NGOs and non-governmental organizations with their PSA suite and what they call Unit 4 Business World On. And then over on the other side of the house, we've got retail, telco, and manufacturing handled by Microsoft. And in the Microsoft space, we're heavy in CRM, finance and operations, and POS. Now the marriage here, the blend, if you will, is those two top bullet points on the bottom. You've got PSA and CRM. And it's important to understand that, because as we move forward and we go through the next couple of slides and start talking about the demo that Boss is going to do, they really interrelate, as PSA sits on top of Microsoft CRM. And what that does for you, or folks that use the solution, is it really opens up things for you, because the Microsoft CRM platform offers a great deal more than just a single unit PSA that's out there. Now with that, to set the stage, I want to talk about, I keep going back to PSA. I believe everybody on this phone knows what this is, but just to set the stage, right? Professional service automation. You guys know what it is: project management, resource management, utilization rates, billable staff, et cetera, et cetera. Down at the bottom, it highlights that CRM systems do come into play, as well as payroll systems for efficiency and overall operations. So that sets the stage as to what we're going to be going into. I do want to bring up a couple of other points, and this is really the education side of the house. I mentioned earlier SPI, right? That's the Service Performance Insight report. They go out and they do surveys on our entire vertical or area of business on the professional services side. And they rate companies, and they allow you to rate yourself based upon what they call service performance pillars. And those pillars are broken down to leadership, client relationships, human capital alignment, service execution, and finance and operations. Today, we're going to highlight the bottom three. And believe it or not, in one way or another, the solution that Boss is going to go through covers these three. So with an operational flow through a PSA, you can hit three primary pillars, which are really the foundation of how all of our businesses run. Human capital alignment, guys, you know, it's the ability to attract, hire, retain, motivate your staff. They're your representation. Service execution, it's your methodology, processes, tools, scheduling, deploying, rating. Finance and operations collects it all. So we're going to end up hitting those. Now, one of the differences here, guys, gals, is on the human capital alignment side of the house. Yes, the PSA solution can help determine how you're going to align the right people with the right projects tied in with your PSA, absolutely. But one of the differentiators, while that sits on top of Microsoft, is Microsoft CRM. Microsoft now owns LinkedIn. So while you're going out and you're pitching a deal and you're pumping it into your CRM and you close that deal, it automatically, or you can automate it to go and start building your PSA inside your PSA, so you have all your contacts, you've got your bill rates, you've got all that set up already, and you realize that you don't have the right individuals. You're tied back into CRM, which is tied back into LinkedIn. So now it gives you that flow of being able to find the right resources for your projects that are out there. Take that out on the other end, And all that information pumps into your finance and ops side of the house. Okay? So what do you do, or what's possible when you automate your ProServ business? You win more business more accurately. Proposals are more accurate. You optimize resource utilization, execute profitable projects, and you go out and you build with precision. So that sets the stage for today. I'm going to hand it over to you, boss. Let you take it, and I believe you're going to pretty much cover everything I did. I just kind of outlined, and you'll run it through your solution. So with that.
All right, thanks, Chris, for introducing me and for the great introduction. And of course, I will take it onwards from here, showing you the PSA suite from Unit 4, an out-of-the-box standard build for your business, for the ProServ business solution. So in 30 minutes, I'll take you through your whole process from funnel to cash, what Chris was describing, and how you can operate as a ProServ business more effective, because it's all about data that we have these days. And when we are starting and we are Microsoft technology focused, you know, Office 365, and I'm showing you this because Office 365 is really all about familiarity. It's like buying a house, you know, it's about the property you work on, property you live in. That's also with your work environment. You know, if it's familiar, you start running with it. So the adoption of your solution is easy going because, or you already use Dynamics 365 or Office 365 is there and you can recognize it. So when we look at this, and I want to show you how we go about with unstructured data to structured data, which we have in everyday life in a professional service organizations. I don't know how much email you get, but it's sometimes really swamping you, but you want to get that straight into structured data. So if you open Outlook, right, and this is my Outlook environment, and this is live and direct, I'm getting an email, and I want this email that we need support on a service request. I want to directly get this information that is unstructured into the PSA suite. Well, there are multiple ways, but we don't want to make it too difficult. At least I want to know who I'm talking to. So we look directly into PSA suite, and I'm talking to Jim Hardwell. I see everything I do with Jim and everything that is going about with Jim Hardwell. But I want to transfer this data directly into a lead or an opportunity, or even if you have an IT services company, you run cases within Dynamics CRM or Dynamics 365 for services, as it's called now, we can directly create a case and log some time on it. For the sake of the demo and the flow, I'm just going to create an opportunity here. So getting that unstructured data, which is an email, into a structured environment. So let's say this is a service request on something I'm doing for these guys. And I say, well, this is a ITK, Worldwide Services, IAP request. So I'm punching this in as I'm going, and I'm saying, well, who's the contact? Well, I'm just going to look in, or I just find my contact who's in there, and I can look for a contact that sits there, and I directly connect it to it, directly connect the account to it. I see he belongs to 2 accounts, and if I want to be connected to a legal entity, right? But to make it more structured, I push that right into a budget amount or estimated revenue. Let's say we do about 50K for this one, for that service request on that IAP for worldwide services, with an estimated closing date. Well, let's hope that we close it this week. It would be good. So we click on save and close. And actually what the system is doing now, it transfers it into a structured way of working in PSA Suite. So that's just super interesting. We can directly, whatever we want to do, create something else from this, right? Maybe create something like let's say a appointment, right? But to give you a bit of thought around that, this is tracking an email, but also to look at it from a standpoint of already templating your timesheet, which Chris was talking about. If you already directly connect that, you have the ability to create an appointment and do the same thing that I'm doing with an email, but now connect it to any project that I'm working on, or maybe already create a service request on. So this is just, again, connecting my appointment into a blueprint of my timesheet. So because it's an unstructured way that we talk into a structured way of handling, and now we can directly see that everything we work on, my IAP request, or maybe a service request on this development for that IAP, right? So I'm tracking this thing, and it's now related in my Outlook agenda. It's so simple, but everybody will use this because it will eventually end up in my Outlook timesheet that looks like that's actually just PSA. So now we got this in, right? We've got this settled, and now I want to view this from a standpoint of my PSA suite. So I'm going to take you to an environment. So we leave Outlook. I'm now going to take you to PSA suite, and you can see that. So in the top navigation bar, we can see the PSA suite. We can see that we're in PSA, we're in the section called dashboards, and we got some commands here that we can create our own dashboards, right? Or at least I'm looking at my operational business. So with one single mouse click, I'm moving from my unstructured way of working in Outlook and tracking my business into how my business is performing. And this is all standard out of the box. It's out there. It's already designed for your business, and it's used by a lot of companies all around the globe. Now, PSA Suite has been on the market since 2011, so we've got quite some knowledge. We've been developing software for over 25 years for professional service organizations, and I'm looking directly into the business. So I can see my hours of production, and I can see my hours of leave, but I can also see the revenues that I'm building, slicing and dicing based against my project types. Now, we all know about project types, contracts. So recurring contracts that we do with our customers, or maybe time and material projects, or maybe fixed fees based on installments that we do. So all kinds of contract value types that we are segmenting in our project administration. And we can directly view that based on our setup of PSA. So when we look at our legal entity structure, that's all set up in PSA, and that makes it so easy to integrate with any financial ERP in the backend. So let's see what we did, for example, last year in North America. I'm looking at my revenues. I'm looking at my revenues for 2018. And so I made last year 35K. And the big chunk was on consulting. I did some architectural stuff, and I did some auditing. And I can directly see, even geographical, where that sits, right? So no need to directly get it into Excel, create a report and spend a lot of time on it, but I can do the same for my resources. So what Chris was describing on how well we perform, but also how well we perform on resources, let's say who's building that in North America then on 2018, those revenues, right? I can do the same thing here. It's supposed to be a guy named Paul Gallagher. And after that, we got a guy called Stan and Oscar, right? So we can see that data directly from your setup of PSA. This is just to give you a bit of an idea how easy it is to work with a standardized solution that's been designed for your business, right? Now, of course, what I did, I tracked this email into an opportunity. So I'm switching dashboards. Dashboards, you can make loads of them. And in my demo environment, of course, I've got loads of them, but we're still in sales. So I'm looking at my estimated closing date and what I've got to go on my opportunity. So here we go. I got my ITK WWS IAP request, which sits for 50K. So it's now converted into structured data in my open opportunity list. So it doesn't get lost. And about winning more business, the first dot that Chris was showing, this is what it's all about, right? Get the data and get it in your sales pipeline so that that's easy to work with, and then adopt it by your workforce. Now I'm clicking on this opportunity. Now watch the top line bar. I'm in opportunities, so I navigate throughout the system wherever I am. It's not siloed, it's one world that we're in, and you can see the flow in my business. I'm in development of an opportunity. The next stage will be a quote. I will be jumping into a project that will close a project. We'll do that in the next, 20 to 25 minutes or so, take you through that whole process. Great thing is that when we put it in from Outlook, we directly forecasted my revenues. So I can click on this little icon called forecast, and this is RIP that we built against the opportunity layer. Now I forecasted 50K in June. Maybe you say, well, not 50K, it's 25 here. So if you're still, a bit of like Excel kind of person, you can also export it to Excel. You can get a forecasted amount. So you can diversify your revenues, right? So let your workforce do that for you, and you have a great enough forecasting tool in PSA Suite as well. So let's navigate back to my little opportunity here. Maybe I'm talking to these guys and I say, well, Jim, you're a great guy. When we get this project, I'm working with you, and I'm a senior project manager. I will maybe charge you a little less than the normal rate, right? So let's say I'm doing this this hour type. So a project manager senior, right? So project manager senior, and I know you. So I said it's $200 an hour, right? So, and I can say, well, maybe it runs till the 1st of August because it's a summer rate or whatever you want, right? So all these things that you're used to working with as a professional service organization are directly in your system. Of course, standard from Dynamics as well. You can do that with products too, right? Just to show you how easy it is to register this stuff against the opportunity, right? So what you want to do now is that you maybe, when you say, okay, well, I've filled all the stuff in, I've made this arrangement with Jim, we're now going into the next stage because I'd like to build him a quote. Now, we strongly believe that as a professional service firm, when you build a quote, you do that based on either previous work, what Chris described. You already did that. So based on your actuals, you want to create a quote, can be done too. We got some neat features in here. But now I'm taking it from an opportunity, converting it into a project quote, and it asks me certain things, right? It takes over the project name, and now I want to run with a template, right? So for this example, I keep it simple. I take a, I'm not too good in typing, I see, so I'll do it again. So I take a template called SureStep Rapid. Probably have more templates in there. You can build your templates based on the service that you provide, right? You can choose a starting date. Let's say we'll start somewhere, hopefully next week if we close it this week. So let's start from the 1st of July. The project type. This is what I sliced and diced on in Power BI, for example. It's a software implementation. Also got multiple choices in there. So let's pick this one, and the project status. Yeah, well, multiple project statuses based on how you run your business. This is what you can decide yourself. So let's say this is now an opportunity, right? So get it as an opportunity. It's US dollar one, and I'm putting it to my EMEA business for some reason, right? So legal entity, currency, and we're all set up in the project, right? So we'll save the project. The project from the settings generate a project numbering, and we're all ready to go. It's that simple to set up a project. And now see what I've done. It's a great feature, because the great feature of PSA Suite is that you select a project work breakdown structure. You can tie specific roles to the project. So let's say I'm the project manager. I don't know if you work with delegates. You can work with delegates as well. So if the project manager is not there, you can work with resource managers based on the size of the business, because it's a very scalable solution. And now I've tied those two roles that I need for my presentation to go and have that structure set up. Now I can determine, based on my project, my resources that I want to push to the project. If you're a global or broader organization, you can tie multiple resources to one project from different legal entities doing cross-charging and intercompany transactions if you want to. You can see that the hourly rate of a project manager of $200 is now inherited from the opportunity, so no data gets lost while we transfer it in the business, right? And you'll see that you have a total financial overview. Now, somehow, when selecting my work breakdown structure, I've estimated 316 hours based on my standardized project plan. That brings me a budget of 53,780, and we're set. Now, let me give you a quick peek. As the project unfolds, of course, we will see more of this information. Flowing around. Now, let me check, because my mouse has stopped working. That's always good. Let me pop open my laptop. All right, so you'll see the financial situation on the engagement, right? So this will unfold once the project goes on. So now I'm closing the financial piece, and you see the detail section. This is my work breakdown structure. So we've got pre-sales phase, we've got an analysis phase, development, we've got an expense phase, and based on your service. So let's say this is now a project that we do for a customer, but you can also have a project that's internal with administrative hours. You can have a project that's a maintenance agreement. Maintenance agreement looks slightly different. Maybe you have a line item, hours in scope, in contract, hours out of contract. But what I think is very important is that the budget is defined, your contract values are defined. So this line is on T&M, this is on fixed fee. And you can see that we have expenses as well. Now, PSA Suite knows up to 9 contract types in one project. So I'm double clicking on diagnostic, taking you into that little line item, because I think this is very important for you to understand that you can cover every aspect of your business in PSA Suite, right? So it's T&M by the hour, by the day, fixed fee, expense billable, expense fixed fee, products, and even recurring. So you can work with the product catalog of Dynamics CRM, and you can even tie it into a recurring scheme for subscription billing, right? So that's all covered within PSA. Let's keep it straightforward from now. You can see that on this line item, which is analysis and diagnostic, we have an estimated time of 65 hours, and we need the scope report and the scope session of a media consultant. Now, the trick is, I didn't push this in, it's my work breakdown structure. So let me navigate quickly back to my engagement, my project, and let me show you that connected to my work breakdown structure, we get this neat little budget grid. And of course, this is very flexible because I can use this budget grid as a standard. But if I want to amend things, so maybe get more hours in, 40 hours on a scope session, maybe we need to push in 50 hours. Yeah, we can adjust that, of course, as we go. We can change the types, so media consultant or the project manager senior. And now I made the special arrangement on the project manager senior because I know Jim from Worldwide Services that I'm going to build the IAP for. And you can see normally we sell them for $395. I made the arrangement that I sell them for 200. So my budget is slowly dropping. I see the cost is 150, so the margin drops as well. So this is great information that we now have directly in. If I need to hire a guy, I'm going to exceed because my transfer rate outstands my selling rate. This is stuff you want to know when you're building your quote prior to sending it over. For the sake of the demo, if you're good with this and you want to send it out to the customer, all right, create a little report. That's your quote. Send it out. Once the customer signs off on it and you're all good with it, then of course you can easily transfer this whole budget into a project plan, right? So based on a single click on that icon, I can create a detailed budget per line item, and I'm converting my budget into a Gantt chart, not leaving the solution. I think that's unique. Not leaving the solution because I'm taking you from the budget into the Gantt chart, now showing you a full project plan. A project plan may be created by someone that said, okay, this is signed. Now project manager, please assign the resources, right? So the project manager start handling his project. He's going to shift it about. This is, well, this needs to start here. I'm going to start this on the 1st of July, right? This maybe. So you can work with this as you go, right? It's flexible. And you can see that we have the scope and scope sessions as activities. So we got a layered structure. We got a project with line items called phases, analysis phase, diagnostic, which we do in T&M, and 2 activities that we need someone for. Now I'm the project manager and I want the best guy in the business. So that's great. Normally I put in Chris, but Chris for now I'm putting in myself because you're not in. So I'm putting in Bas. And I can see that Bas is from another legal entity and he's in a certain region and it's 16 hours and I request Bas, right? Here we go. Now this is one of the ways. The other way that Chris was highlighting is also that I can ask for people based on the requirements. So I need someone from a region. I need someone with a specific role that's available at least 50% in this time or has a skill. So you can also manage your skills in PSA, and I need someone that has CRM applications at least level 7. Who do we have available? So just look in this time frame and see who we have available. Oh, sorry. It's again a guy called Bas and a guy called Mehmet, and he's 100% available, and he's in Amsterdam, right? And I'm in East somewhere, and I'm 95% available. So I can select Mehmet, and I can request him, right? Those things you can do with PSA. As long as it's a thick line, it's a tentative appointment, right? So in general, we now have a tentative resource request status here, requested. And if you work with a separate resource manager, that can be fulfilled then. But if you're not working with a separate resource manager, you can also say, well, I want him in and just demark this and he's now booked, right? That's based on your process. It's all process driven. But it's a standardized solution that you look at, and I think that's very neat. So let's save this. Let's look what we did here. We asked for Bas. Now I want to view that in my business. So now I'm changing the role. I'm leaving as a project manager on my project. I said, well, this is good. Now I want to, I'm the resource guy. and I need to look in my business. I am looking for project managers. So I can build my own views. This is, you can build, because we believe that you need flexibility. I'm going to look at my project manager's day view. You can build here the views. So I can see now directly who I have available. And you can see that we have Bas, we have Jeroen. They're both on projects. It's color coded, so you can see that there's it's bluish, purple, whatever color, and that's that says you are a little underutilized. This is highly underutilized. This is you're okay with 8 hours work. Your work scheme is also 8, and highly overbooked is red. Now let's look at Bas. Bas has been requested on the ITK project, and it's seamlessly integrated data directly available to everybody in the business. And as a resource manager, I can say, yeah, Bas is approved. Now imagine doing this to your customer, putting in a request, and you can directly go back to your customer and state, all right, guys are available, because quick service will mean in the end, quick time entry will mean quick payment of the invoice, because you deliver services, and when you do that all quickly, then it stays in the minds of your customers, and you are a good service firm. At least you get that very well sorted out. Now, we have Bas acknowledged, right, on the project here. So you see the yellow outline disappears, and now Bas becomes a team member on the project. Now you can also recall that I had some activities waiting for the consultant team. So we're now looking in the consultant team queue for the work that's there. We can see that we need a media consultant in this time frame. So, and he needs to do a scope session. It's 40 hours. And I say, well, it's great. Mehmet, you're on it. And I drag and drop it to Mehmet, allocating the resource, because Mehmet is on the bench. We can see he has no work, and now he's scheduled. The great thing is I can see directly that Mehmet doesn't have a life and a work hour scheme, because I can book him for Friday and Saturday at least, right? So he works 6 days a week. So based on the work hour scheme that you can set up in our solution, you can determine if your people work maybe different in a bi-weekly scheme or whatever, right? So this is all now directly incorporated into your project. So I quickly switch back, I'll refresh the information, and of course you will see Mehmet not with a thick outline, but he is approved on the project. And great thing is he is directly become a team member on the project. So it will save a lot of administrative tasks for you, right? Because this can send out an email to Mehmet, man, you're on the project, we can start working now, right? All integration out of the box, no customization whatsoever, right? So this is all the way up into how you manage your resources and how you can look at that. Now let's book some time. We're now stepping to a consultant role, and I want to book some time. I'm a consultant. I don't need to see all the stuff that I need to see in PSA, because I've a limited role. I need to go to my projects and do that stuff. So Dynamics, the platform, is set up that you can create skins based on roles, and we have certain skins for project manager or resource manager, but also for timesheets, right? It will give you limited access to specific parts in the PSA solution. So if you don't want all the overhead of your full PSA practice management solution, great. I need to go to dashboards, I need to view my timesheets, and I need to book expenses. That's all I need to do, right? So I'm going to timesheets, and I will use my Outlook. I need to log in. I will use my Outlook as a blueprint for my timesheet. Here you go. Now, I already booked some time. That was already in. The orange one, you saw that I did produce that in my Outlook agenda. And if I open the orange one, you can see it's already connected to the project, right? I can directly book to the project, select any activity. I'm still in budget. I book 1 hour, maybe I want to book 3 hours, 5 hours, and click on save, right? It's that easy. It's even that easy if I select my hour type, because I probably don't have a default hour type connected, so that's why that's showing that. So okay, I click on save, and now saving using my Outlook agenda. This gray one is not connected to a project. So let's say I want to connect this to a project. So I'm now going to find my little project, right? So I say, well, it was something with ITK, right? And here's my little project we just had a booking on. So now booking 3 hours, right? Workshop preparation, and I'm booking to the activity on diagnostic that is tied to my name. So click on save. Easy to use your Outlook agenda. We have this interface of booking time and expense, and even maybe I did some work and I need to copy and paste the entry because I did some preparations for that day, and I can drag and drop it, and whatever I want to do, I can just, here we go. it needs to save, of course, and paste the entry. So doing a couple of time entries, you can move them around. It's about how easy it is to book time. We've got an app for iPhone and Android in the stores available, and we've got multiple ways of booking time. Let's say you're on the project. Let's say you're working on a case and you want to book an instant time entry. It's right there, right? You can do that using a timer. We see a lot of service organizations are using timers. So I can say start a timer and it runs, right? I can say, well, I'm working on this and I need to add some minutes or adjust some minutes. You can, so there's a lot of functionality that you directly have in the PSA suite that covers your process on how you want to work and how it supports your working experience, right? Okay, so we pushed in some time. Now I'm stepping into the role, and believe me, it's right in here. So let's just view that detail, right? The progress in my project is covered. So refresh the list. Dynamic data, 1800 right here, represented by 9 hours of bookings. If I want to view the progress in my project, you heard Chris talking about the project performance. It's all standard in PSA. So you switch to your project performance report, and it's just here. I say, well, I want to do a measurement based on the cost amount. I have booked on T&M in my budget. I had 56 hours. I booked 9. I am normally on the margin. I calculated with 68%. Now I'm spending time. Bas is the guy spending it, and I'm a little below my margin, right? So we're a little bit below. But you can directly see that. You can directly see that you have work in progress, right? So everything is consolidated and is also consolidated up to the account, right? If you want to visualize that, just be my guest. We visualize it and we have it visualized in here as well. We haven't spent anything on the budget because it hasn't been approved and not invoiced anything. So we haven't approved any of that time entry. So let's move and go from our little project to the utilization and the time entries we did to our PM approval module. This is, of course, something that you can activate or you won't activate. It's all, again, based on your project. But we believe when we talk about bill with precision, one of the dots that Chris was referring to, I strongly believe that when you manage that process up front, which now is often done in the billing sequence, you will be more you will have a better number in the end because you can manage your revenues in an earlier stage. So if I now look in my projects that I need to approve, right, and I've got a lot of work to approve here. I can see probably in here. Let's minimize the size and the scope of what I'm looking at. Hopefully it's only that little project here. Yeah, that's right. So we got 2 projects in this time frame. And now let's look at my project. We booked some time against. You can see that we have 3 time entries. On preparation of a workshop, it was a project manager senior. On the analysis phase, on diagnostic, all T&M. Maybe you want to do a write-up or a write-down. This is about managing and bill with precision, right? Because normally this is done on the invoice. The write-off gets lost. You write off a lot of money and you don't know where it went, right? Now, if you put it in your process and you say, well, we need to validate with a write-off note, it will make your business more profitable. It's just the way it works, right? You can also see, well, we had Bas with a project manager senior, but maybe we want to change maybe his hour type to maybe a media consultant, right? Based on settings, you can do this, right? It's not that everybody can do this. It's based on the role, based on your business processes, based on everything, right? If you want to reject hours, put them on hold for later approval. For the sake of the demo, I'm going to, and watch the graph, I'm going to now directly push time and approve time. But if you say, well, this time needs to be navigated into another line item. So I'm going to navigate now this little line item to in the high level design. And this is often used when you do for example, a quotation and you book your time to your pre-sales phase, that maybe later on you want to use your pre-sales time against the project, right? So that's what I'm doing now. I'm pushing it into another line item. Here you go. So full flexibility, but all in one system. And I think this is what professional service organizations being 25 years in the business want. This is why we developed this as a standard, right? So I'm approving 4% of my budget. Here we go. And now I'm getting back and navigate back to my little project. You can see directly my next project is provided to me because I'm not done yet on work, but I'm going to skip it for now and navigate to my little project here. So with that little clock on the top right, I can go to my most recent records and drill down into my project. So what we did, we selected a project, we built it with a work breakdown structure. We have now a full detailed structure on the invoice. So we see that we have now to be invoiced $1,200. We have pushed actuals against the project, that meaning 3 time entries that is approved. We didn't book any expenses today, but believe me, that can be the case. Also on the mobile device, take a photograph of your receipt and upload it as a document to your expense entry. We can now, from these actuals, create an invoice, right? Invoicing can be very complex. We like to keep it very simple, because if you arrange it up front and you manage it well, then at least invoicing should and could be automated fully. You can automate it in PSA if you're ready. You can build invoice plans for every contract value that you have, so that you can schedule your planning, your billing. But I do it now to show you the invoice from a single project. Here we go. So clicking on invoice, it will generate first a draft invoice. All right, nothing happens until we approve that little invoice. So I'm stretching my date a bit because I'm booking time this week, and the billing always looks back, of course. So we'll see that we have diagnostic 1200 work in progress. If you want to filter down on the 2 line entries that we did, it's there. So we have 200. We don't have any billable expenses, and at least we don't have any billable products in here. So let's navigate and invoice $1,200. So here we go, click on OK. This will write your data directly into the invoice entity of Dynamics. So it's not something that we build on top of that. We use as much as we can from the Dynamics platform so that we keep this as straightforward as possible. So let's look. We have chosen a detailed invoice, meaning as, for example, an IT service company or an accountant or a legal firm, you want to see every line entry that you have in. So let's look at the general section. Now you can see a section here called invoice lines. Yeah, there it is. We see 2 invoice lines on a project manager senior, 2 times 3 hours, representing 300. If you want to adjust it still here, it can be done, right? So flexibility up until the end. What I always like about it is that I want to view my invoice, how it ends up at the customer. So because that's what it's about, right? So now I'm going to preview my invoice. It's just an example, probably not the most neat one, but I think you catch my drift. Based on your layout, you can show this as a report and directly email it to the invoice, email it to the customer. There's also a service that can automate that, but you can do it manually. Functionality like credit notes, reversed invoices, partial credit notes is all part of the system, right? So let's quickly take it back into the general section. Let's say someone else is creating the invoices, you're the one approving. The great thing is that when you're approving, you just look in your dashboards of invoices and you find the last invoice that you need to approve. Well, I probably got a lot of stuff to approve in my all my invoices to be approved here, right? So let's say I need to get that little invoice for that iApp that I just created. Here we go. There's the 1200 on this little invoice. I approve it. Just mark it as approved, and it will automatically generate an invoice number. It only got an ID now. It generates an invoice number, and multiple things happen when we do that. We talked about the finance and operations side. Now it transfers this invoice into the settings of your PSA suite, which holds your general ledger and your groups and everything around that. And it's now converted into a journal posting, right? So we have built on the project for ITK WWS iApp request for worldwide services and invoice. So now on worldwide services, the work in progress has become less. We have an outstanding revenue on the project, and the invoice is directly connected. So let's look in our project, right? So we open our project. I first show you the outcome of a revenue, or sorry, of an invoice, which is a journal entry. Yeah, so there's the journal entry, and it's all based on your settings, right? So this is just an invoice for 1200, 600 on revenue A and 600 on revenue B, right? Financial periods, legal entities, date lines, dimensions that you have on the project, transaction types, all in here. So if your finance guy sees this, they're all getting thrilled about this, because we are consolidating all the financial entries into a bucket called PSA financials. There's no time to dive into that right now, but what I wanted to highlight is that we have a financial transaction. This financial transaction can be posted to any financial ERP, being QuickBooks, being finance and operations, being Business Central, or any finance backend that you might run, right? This is what we're strong in. PSA Suite is an ERP independent PSA solution, right? Based on Dynamics 365, and we can integrate this with any solution that's there, right? Any financial ERP that's there. So the last thing I would like to show you, or at least two of the last things, is that we now on this engagement made a change, right? So on the detailed section, you can now see that we have invoiced at 1200, right? And even our financial status has been updated with 1200 invoiced, right? And we still see that we have a 600 WIP actuals that's remaining not billed, right? So that's what we did. Now I can drill down into the project. So I'm going to navigate a bit down to the invoice section. There we go. And there's all kinds of things you can settle on the invoice section. And you will see directly that we have the possibility to view our invoice here. Right, here's our invoice. So with the presentation I just started like half an hour ago, I think maybe a little less, I showed you the full funnel to cash process because I converted an email into a opportunity. I took that opportunity and created that unstructured to structured data into a project. We created on the project a project work breakdown structure with a budget. We assigned the budget to resources. Resources were team members. They started booking time on it. The time was booked to the project. The time was approved, and we were actually able to build the time. And we showed the process in a little over half an hour. So with that, I would like to hand it over back to the team of Chris, and let me just quickly push some buttons here and see if you get any questions coming out of there. All right.
Yeah, as soon
Thank
as
you so
it pops
much.
over. Pops, well, thank you very much. Having gone through this here at ITK, what Boss just ran through was quite impressive within 30 minutes. So I think you did a nice job of summarizing, and that's all this slide here does. Just talking about the easy way. If you're in and you've got a tier 1 PSA product that's up and running, you'll note that they've come a very long way from 15, 20 years ago. They were very rudimentary back at that time. Utilization and bill rates at your fingertips, availability, booking revenue, timesheet to cash, proposals based upon actuals, just taking those the work breakdown structure that was actually booked to. You can take that same structure and apply it to your next proposals, which Boss was showing you. So at least how you book the time there, and you can take that and grab it and create your proposals. So why ITK Unit 4? Simply stated, we're users. We've been in, and we are in your shoes. It's what we do. Talk about eating your own cooking. We go at it from a process first, technology second. That's always been our moniker. And Unit 4 has been, as you just saw, fully integrates ERP, PSA, and CRM into one solution. So the magician that turns timesheets into invoices, you've got a 24/7 operations manager and even a project manager. Brian put in here soothing salve for your line of credit talks at the bank. Talk about being able to pump out your backlog reports and being able to illustrate very clearly when you go to your financial institutions. It's a huge time saver, and actually built a lot of trust when you can spin stuff like that right around. And it's not sitting in just sitting in Excel, and it helps you scale. So, folks, that's our presentation today. We've got about 3 minutes. Brian, I can hand it back to you if you want to just take it from here and let us know if any questions have popped out. Let's see if we can answer any of them. We only have a couple of minutes though.
Great. So we do have a couple of questions. So I think this one a little bit of a technical one. So probably this would be for Boss. So how do project templates work, and what are the benefits?
Yeah, Great, thanks for that question. So yeah, how do project templates work? Project templates are built on phases, so we call them groups, and within groups you have items, and underneath items you have activities. Because as a professional service organization, you want as much as you can standardize, and I mean if you can, standardize your service offerings, and that based on your contract relationship with your customer, right? So if you need to be, for example, IFRS compliant, that's just the case that you need to work with the work breakdown structure with specific milestones that you offer, right? So it's supportive to your processes in your business. Now, you can think of a project template, but you can also think maybe of a program template. That's something that we did not handle. But if you have multiple service lines to one customer, you want to standardize maybe your multiple service lines and do a consolidated billing over your multiple service lines to your customer. It's more seamless, and it's based on your business type, but it's fully supported by PSA Suite as well. So if you're interested in learning more about that, get in touch with ITK, and we're more than happy to show you more bits and pieces around that.
Yeah, so so I think a couple really good ones here. So we'll see if we can keep this nice and tight. You covered, Bas, you covered the tight integration with Microsoft's stack. This is a question. So do you offer standard integration with Microsoft D365 F&O? So that's finance and operations.
Yes, we do. And we're the first ones to come to market with an app that standard integrates finance and operations and PSA Suite. And what's the reason behind that? Because if we look at PSA Suite is an operational, as we discussed today, an operational data set, right? While your finance backend, either being QuickBooks or finance and operations, is a transactional data set. So we can easily use that integration. So what we do, we use Azure Services and Azure Service Bus to get those contracts, as they call them in finance and operations. We transfer them directly into the contracts. And the great thing is that you will see a financial posting ending up in the outstanding revenues in finance and operations, but also getting expenses that you have and book into finance and operations, book that on a project dimension directly on your project, which you're booking to an expense billable line item, and it's directly up for billing. So it's a seamless integration. It's standard. It's out of the box from Unit 4.
I get a funny one here, Chris. So this is for you. So someone's asking, what was the tipping point for your business when you said, that's it, we can't keep doing things like this?
Well, I think you were chuckling because we talked about it when you put that bullet point in there for the solve, right? The solve of being able to go talk to financial institutions. We definitely had our our backlogs in Excel, and the problem was they're not updated on a regular basis. And so when I had to go to the bank and turn around and rebuild my backlog report, it took a day and a half just before we could collect from all the project managers. And it was at that point that we just said this has to change. So, yep.
All right, great questions. Chris, Bas, thank you so much for painting this picture of the ProServ automation and what Unit 4 PSA Suite can brings to the table, and Chris, ITK's background. I do want to tell the folks that are on our session today, and other folks that will be listening from the recording, that we're going to follow up and send some interesting some assets. There's some tools that the Unit 4 team has put together to kind of take a step in the direction in terms of handling some of these issues that we've talked about today. And you certainly should feel free to reach out to the ITK team to start a conversation if to talk about some of the challenges you're having right now, and see if there's anything we can do to help. So again, thank you so much for everyone that attended today, and for our team presenting today. Really appreciate it, guys.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, boss. Take care.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Brian. Have a good day all.
All right, guys. Have a great day.